Keep breathing. Awesome. Now in the wild, this is a good example of what they would do in the wild. Normally it would be on a beach, saltwater, and they have these little pouches on the side of their mouths that they can actually store some food in. So what they'll do is they'll swim back and forth and grab all the crab and shrimp that they can fit into their pouches, and then when they're done, they'll go to the rock and throw their food a little later. They can actually hold their breath for up to about 45 seconds, so they have a pretty good set of lungs. Now these monkeys were brought here back in 1933 by Joseph Dumont. Joseph Dumont is the original owner of Monkey Jungle. And he wanted to study the primate's behavior here in a semi-natural environment rather than going back and forth from Florida to Indonesia to study them. As you can imagine, traveling in the 30s was not that easy. So what he did is he actually imported 6 of these guys from their natural habitat, and he let them loose here in this 7-acre compound, which is very similar to their native environment, so he knew they'd do very well. As I mentioned a second ago, we have about 140 to 150 of these guys, and all of them are descendants of the original 6 that were let loose here about 70 years ago. So they have a pretty big population established. Now, what Joseph wanted to study specifically was the social structure of these animals. It's based off a complicated system called a dominance hierarchy, or what's probably better known as a pecking order. What this means is that within this group of monkeys, there's actually going to be a leader, and he'll be the most dominant member of the group, or what we call the alpha male. Now, underneath the alpha male, there'll be a monkey number 2 in charge, and underneath monkey number 2, there'll be a less dominant, but still very important monkey number 3, and so forth, all the way down to the last member of the group, so everybody has a specific rank to play. Now, being the alpha male, he has certain responsibilities he has to hold to the group, and one of these responsibilities is to maintain the social order within his group. So sometimes when there's little disputes or fights that break out between the monkeys, it's the alpha male's job to go over there and break it up and end it, make sure it doesn't get too serious, because sometimes these guys can fight pretty viciously. Also, a lot of times the lower-ranking monkeys will step out of line to test their rank, see if they might be able to move up in rank. And it's the alpha male's job to go over there and slap him around a little bit and remind him that he's supposed to stay where he's at and don't step out of line again. Now, with all these responsibilities, he'll have his fair share of rewards. One of these rewards will be his first choice of pretty much anything that's important to them. First choice of where to sit, first choice of where to sleep at, first choice of where to get groomed at and who's going to groom him, first choice of what food he's going to eat and how much of it is he going to eat, and also very important to them, the first choice of females as well. Now, a lot of people ask me, how does the monkey actually get his rank? What is this system based off of? And there's a couple of different factors involved into this, and one of them is the maternal association, or in other words, who's their mother. The way this scenario works is if it's a baby of one of the higher-ranking females in that group, then that baby will grow up to be one of the higher-ranking monkeys. But if it's a baby of one of the lower-ranking females in the group, then of course that baby will grow up to be one of the lower-ranking monkeys. Now the other thing that determines their rank is their political alliances, basically who their friends are and how many of these friends do they have. So with this in mind, you can understand that their ranks do change pretty often. One way that it will change is when they're growing up, if they can earn the respect of some of these higher-ranking monkeys. The way they do this is usually when they're about a year old or so, they start to roughhouse and wrestle with the rest of the guys in the troop. Very similar to how children do on a playground. And this is where they make and break most of their friendships and relationships. So at this time, if they can befriend some of these higher-ranking monkeys and earn their respect and do the whole political alliance factor, they'll move up in rank. However, if they don't take that opportunity to do that when they're younger, then they end up having to fight for that respect when they get older. And that's why a lot of times you'll see them with scars on their back or maybe even open wounds. Sometimes these fights are pretty vicious. Now, the other way that a monkey can actually move up in rank is by defeating an alpha male. And what would happen to the old alpha male is he would then have to assume the subordinate position, not only to the new monkey that overthrew him, but also to any other monkeys that new guy brings into the troop as well. So he can very easily go from being one of the highest-ranking monkeys to one of the low-ranking monkeys, depending on how big the other group was that defeated them. Now, when you guys walk through the park, you're going to frequently see them picking through each other's fur, and this is actually a behavior that we call grooming. Now, a lot of people assume that when they're grooming each other, they're going to look for parasites like maybe fleas or ticks or anything like that. But on the contrary, these guys are actually very clean, and for the most part, they're free of any kind of exoparasites. What they're really looking for is dandruff. And the reason why is because when the monkeys sweat, the salt in their sweat gets absorbed by these little particles of dandruff, and then it serves as a salty snack, so it's kind of like a sweat chip or something. It's pretty gross. But more important than that, the whole grooming process actually helps cement bonds between the monkeys within the group. Sometimes these groups can be over 100 members, so they get to know one another, they actually groom each other. Now, the lifespan of a Java macaque can be anywhere from 25 years to 30 years. The males become mature between the ages of 5 and 8, and the females become mature much earlier between the ages of 3 and 5. Now, when the female is fully mature, she can have anywhere from 6 to 8 babies throughout her lifetime. She's only going to be able to give birth to one baby at a time, usually between the months of May through September, after a gestation period of about 6 months. Now, the babies, they're easy to recognize because not only are they very tiny and cute looking like some of these guys over here, but when they're newborn babies, they're actually born with a full coat of black fur and pink skin. And this is called the natal coat. Now, the natal coat holds a special significance within the whole dominance hierarchy or the pecking order that we were talking about. So as long as a mother is seen carrying a baby with one of these natal coats, then she's the most protected and privileged member of the troop at that time. So they're going to be allowed to live, socialize, and groom and even eat with the higher-ranking monkeys of that group. And this is important for a couple reasons. One, they have access to better protection because they're around all the higher-ranking monkeys. But more important than that, they actually have access to better foods at the time of the nutrition is very important for the young ones as they're being raised. After about 6 months or so, these babies will lose their natal coat and their regular coat of fur grows in. And when the rest of the monkeys in the troop see that that happened, then that mother will lose her special feeding privilege. So she'll have to start to rate in line according to her status. Lucky for the babies, they're still nursing up until about 9 months. But once they lost that special feeding privilege, the mother starts to wing them on to more solid foods, like some of the food that we throw here. Maybe the raisins you guys give them in the park, or it could be insects or lizards, anything that they might find like that in the wild. And that unfortunately concludes the presentation. Does anybody have any questions at all?